A couple weeks back at EGX Rest, I got the chance to play Snooker 19. It's the first proper snooker game that we've seen on the shelves for ages, and being a huge fan of all things cue sport, I was quite enthusiastic about it. Because let's face it, there's not much around for us. Well, now I've got an actual copy of the game, so I can tell you all about it properly. Now, for the purposes of disclosure, I will say that Ripstone, the game's publishers, granted me a copy of the game's PC version. No questions asked, with the freedom to say, whatever I want about it. And if you haven't been aware of the game up to this point and you're thoroughly foaming at the mouth, desperate for a fix of virtual base action, then I'll tell you that it's out on Steam, PS4, Xbox One and Switch literally right now. But if you want to know more, well, listen on. As mentioned already, this is the first licensed snooker game in a long time. The last one came out in 2011. So Snooker 19 doesn't exactly have much competition. The diehards, desperate to play folks who are actually real, might go for WSC Real 09, commonly thought of as the best of the last lot of licensed games made by the now defunct Dark Energy Digital. There are other really good Q Sports games out there like Pool Nation or Q Club, but yeah, those are kinda more centred around pool. There's international snooker on Steam, but, well, it's terrible. And there's the Grand Old Masters, still very good, Jimmy White's 2 Cue Ball and the almighty Jimmy White's Whirlwind Snooker. That game may be close to 30 years old, but it's still one of the best out there. Which kinda goes to show, doesn't it? In other words, we're bloody desperate. Sure, we could just go to our local club, plunk a few quid down and stand around in a darkened room, slowly downing pints, eating toasties, talking the game and obviously avoiding our significant others. But what about the virtual feel of grabbing your favourite pro and taking him all the way to the World Championship? That's kind of been missing. But not for much longer. Snooker 19 comes with the world's top 128 players right out of the box. This means you get a pretty good range. Obviously all the very big names are here, your O'Sullivans, Trumps, Robertsons, Selbys, Higginses, but there's loads of others, including some older ones who aren't that big anymore. Want to play as Jimmy White, Ken Doherty or even James Wattener? Well, they're still kicking around, so they're here. Maybe you want to play as James Cahill, the amateur who recently shocked the sport by beating Ronnie O'Sullivan in the Worlds. He's here, along with other young lions and names familiar to those like me who are more obsessed with the game. Crazy Thai potting machine Tepchaiwan Nu, super grindy slaphead Gary Wilson, and even the ultra sinister Martin Gould. If they play snooker professionally, then they're probably here. Now, how do these players actually look? Yeah, not bad for the most part. This isn't exactly a AAA title and it's a snooker game, so while some of the models aren't super accurate, they're kinda dead in motion and the graphics are perhaps a few years behind the curve, it doesn't hugely matter. As you would expect, the top players look pretty good. They've even managed to emulate Neil Robertson's awful hair don't, and the smaller players, not so much, although generally okay. The arenas themselves? Fine. The actual table, which let's face it is what you're going to be looking at most of the time? Very good. The balls shine appropriately, there's some cool depth of field work going on with the shots, and there's lots of chalk marks left around. That might not necessarily be accurate seeing as snooker players obsess over wiping off every little chalk mark when they play, but it does look good. And of course there's commentary provided by the Eurosport duo of Neil Folds and David Hendon. It's kind of crap and tends to get confused easily, saying that you're going for a safety when you're quite clearly going for a pot. But, it's there and, well, let's face it, commentary usually isn't that good anyway. The presentation is kind of as expected then. Not amazing, but fine enough for the sort of game it is. There are some problems though, but we'll get to them when we get more into what the game can do to improve from here. The most important thing, of course, is the play. You have the usual options. Aiming with the left stick, control power with the right, trigger fine aim and spin with the left and right trigger respectively. You can also use a free look around your shot, which is kinda useful, especially when you're using the harder aim assists or, indeed, no aim assist at all. You can also display the point values of the coloured balls. I actually highly appreciate this little quality of life feature as I am slightly colourblind, especially when it comes to snooker. I can't differentiate between the red and brown, so it's nice to actually know where the brown is at any given time when it isn't on its spot. Playing a shot comes in 3 stages. First, there's a general TV view of the table, which you'll use to initially pick your shot. The second stage is the player's view. You'll want to use this for the finer elements of the shot, making sure it's spot on for direction, power and spin. The third stage is cueing. You've already set the power bar and you use the right stick to pull the cue back up roughly to where you've set it and then push forward to play the shot. Again, as with TV presentation, this takes place from a view in front of the pocket you're going for. How does all this feel? Actually very natural. There's a dynamic to playing shots here that I've found lacking in a lot of other snooker games, especially ones like this that operate with power bars. It seems as though these guys actually managed to suss it out. I really enjoy being able to craft shots in this game, and the aim assists are helpful without being too explicit. While it's generally easy to pot straight shots, a lot more so than in real life, cutting balls in is still going to require a very keen eye, even on the easiest assist mode, and it's actually quite rewarding to play a good safety shot too. This is different as, quite frankly, a lot of other snooker games, they barely had any sort of safety game at all. I mean, even the computer will actually play for safety shots and snookers from time to time. The game does feel quite intuitive, like something you actually want to get better at. The ball physics are also pretty good and natural, which is a definite plus point as a Fairview games have felt pretty bloody wonky in the past here. Still, the computer's play, a lot of the time, has been the major stumbling block in a lot of snooker games. So many have had the same problem. You have two options. Either the AI is deathly stupid and will struggle to do so much as pot balls that are right over the pocket, or they're ridiculously hard. The slightest imperceptible error and they'll hit an almost impossible shot, get perfect positioning and clear the table from there, all the while going for ludicrous shots that no one would ever go for in a real match and nailing them. How does Snooker 19 fare? It's better than most, but not quite all the way there yet. I have to say I don't find the easier modes to be too easy, which is a good thing. Obviously the CPU is going to make mistakes at this level, but they are still actually going to be able to pot balls, make some breaks, and surprise you by putting up a good fight from time to time. And those mistakes, well, they'll actually be, mistakes. Missed pots and the like, not, oh, I'm suddenly going to just pot the white for no reason and foul the black because I'm a bloody idiot. The harder modes are generally okay, but I think they could perhaps do with a little more calibration. While you would expect someone like Judge Trump to make very few mistakes, and I have no trouble with someone like him being very hard to beat, especially when it comes to potting, the odd highly unrealistic pot can kinda creep in. Now Judge Trump is obviously known for potting, so presumably his stats for that are turned right up to 11. Unrealistic shots are less common when playing against a more grindy, safety-focused player like, say, Mark Selby, and equally, if Judge Trump tries to play a safety, there's a likelihood that it'll go wrong, even as good as it is. So, there is actually a little difference and attempt to emulate how these folks play in real life. There are certain things though, such as the way the CPU tends to go about clearing all the colours off their spots, that can be just a little bit unnatural. It's a minor quibble, but when you've watched snooker so much and you're familiar with players doing this almost ritualistically, virtually the same way every time, it can take you a little bit out of the game when it's just that bit off. The most annoying part of the whole thing, however, is actually finishing a frame, especially when it's one you've basically won. A lot of the time the computer simply won't bloody quit, even if there's several snookers down with no chance of coming back, and it takes getting all the way to the pink or even the black to finish, which can be a pain when naturally the CPU's always going for safeties. Not even snookers most of the time, just safeties. This can turn the odd frame into a really unnecessary slog at the finish, which is a bit of a shame. I would say generally that Snooker 19 is a pretty okay game. I do actually quite enjoy playing it, a lot more than I have any other new snooker game for a long time. But it's not a great game. What it is though is a bedrock. There's plenty of room for improvement both in the short and the long term, and we may as well devote a lot of time to this seeing as how games get updated so much nowadays. Presentation wise, while I don't mind things like occasionally weak models or rubbish commentary, there are some big problems still. The main one being that, well, there's not a lot of people there. Usually there's only one player visible at any time, the guy taking the shot. There's no referee aside from a disembodied voice of God. This does need to be added really. Other less modern games had it, so this one really should sort that out. If we're having a TV presentation, where's all the cameras? The game's half the way to emulating the TV presentation of snooker, but the emptiness of the arena does hurt it. You need those cutaways, whether to the player on the shot itself when it's the CPU's turn, or to the other guy slumped in his chair when you're on the table. Snooker 19, outside of the regular quick match options, is a bit of a bare bones package. You get two ways to approach career mode, either through playing as a top guy or a rising star. That's fine, but it's a shame that you can't build your own pro currently. While career mode isn't necessarily a huge deal to me, being able to have my own player would be nice. I also think it's really important for the game to have a free practice mode. At the moment it only has the basic tutorial. I want to just have a table to screw around with, practice shots and safeties, break building and all that on. That's how snooker players get better in real life after all. They don't get better through playing matches, they get better through time spent practicing. And it would be nice to get better in this game by doing the same thing, as that would be a more accurate emulation of snooker. There are other little things here and there that could be ironed out, such as occasional graphical glitches that I do expect will be dealt with in good time. But one big thing that I would point out is that in single player it's very easy to cheat. Naturally you can save your progress in a match at any point just by exiting out of it, which is obviously handy because snooker can be a long game. However, if you miss a shot in career mode, you can simply pause, go back to the main menu, start up the live match again and it'll put you right back at the shot you've just missed. So you shouldn't be able to pause the game and do that while the balls are moving. It's kind of annoying to, in a high pressure game, even if you don't end up doing it if you have that self-control, to have that thought in the back of your mind of, let's just cheat whenever you screw something up. It just shouldn't be there. Snooker 19 is pretty okay, good even, but there is definitely room for improvement. Perhaps some of these things were going to be added, but they needed to get this game out because, hey, the World Championships are on right now and obviously you're going to want to get this game out. These are the 2 weeks of the year where most people are actually interested in the sport, and as soon as that's gone and people leave the Crucible for another year, well, no one's going to be too bothered about this game's release. It's understandable that Ripstone would need to get this game out now, especially as a minor publisher. What I hope is that in the coming weeks and months, and indeed if we do end up seeing a Snooker 20, is that the work continues to be put in to make this a better game, whether it's through sharpening up the AI or adding any of the things I've mentioned. There is the potential here for a very, very good game, and crucially I do also think that there's the hunger for it to actually have a properly good snooker title with the proper players out on the market. I wish all the best for Ripstone and Lab 24, and I hope that they get there. This young club pro just needs some work in the woodshed, and if it gets it then, it could well end up lifting the big title. Bye for now. Many thanks for watching this video. If you liked it then please consider going on my social media, liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and also having a look at my Patreon, where you could join this list of the great and the good right here. Andrew Dalton, Andy Capt, Asobi Kwan DX, Chris Cox, Conrad Pritchard, Daniel Briggs, Dave Cork, David Rose, Dustin Cooper, Freakish Uproar, Gary Samaden, Geordie Alex, James Brown, James Loveridge, Jason Stevens, Jace Alexander, Jeff Ladd, Lee Norris, Lukas Kuligowski, Matthias Gramzov, Martin Pataki, Nicholas Tristan, Nick Smith, Nicky and Bunty, Peter Jack, Potter Margel, Ren Bimon, Are You OK 2000, Seth Robinson, Simon Gulliver, Yerka Operator, Zach Roach, and all the rest of the community. Thank you, and goodbye.